Should we have a little talk? Relationships. I like, no, it's not too bad for lighting. Gotta get close to my face though. Freya North in Norway, dude. I love her, the way she starts her videos. Sorry, it's all over the place. Should we have a little talk? And it cuts the scene. She's really excellent. Relationships, man. Holy shit. The next frontier for many of us in the healing community, the awakening, the evolutionary tribe, cosmic tribe. Some of us have done a lot of work in this department, a lot of work in communication and balancing and all the things, but relationships are complicated, man. And when you've been through a lifetime of absolute fucking hell and abuse, neglect and abandonment and betrayal and freaking mosquitoes, dude. I just got two of them on my leg. They were like a millimeter from each other. Never seen it before. Bloodsuckers. Relationships, man. I'll probably be talking about this a lot this year. It was just Valentine's Day here, and traditionally my favorite holiday. I'm a Leo, so I'm huge romantic, and I haven't been in partnership for over a decade, since my daughter was born. And long story. Some of you know, and if you've been through narcissistic abuse, then you got a pretty good idea. But I've had literally like almost no connections on any level, definitely not romantic, for over a decade. And it's brutal because my love language is physical touch, my primary. And my giving and receiving love languages are a little bit different, but there's so much, speaking of love languages, there's so much excellent work that's been done in this department over the years. And personally, I'm tuning into astrology big time recently. Human design is really powerful as well, and gene keys I know a little bit less about, but I imagine there's a lot of good stuff there, a lot of good info. But even looking at some of the more mundane, like from psychology, psychiatry, etc. Love Languages is a really excellent book, dude. It was a huge learning tool for me, learning about myself, learning about partners and about my family even, because we don't all understand love the same way, or like when somebody else is trying to express love, oftentimes if the person receiving it does not have that same love language, or it's not their primary one, or neither person even knows about love languages, it can be incredibly frustrating. And I think there's a book a long time ago, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or something like that, and just talking about some of the bigger like gender differences, and understanding that can be helpful too. But that's very like grainy, so it's not fine-tuned, but it's cool seeing culture evolve around some of these issues and conversations. But there's a lot to learn about, and I think we come to it with so many assumptions, especially for those of us that grew up on Disney. It's like thinking that there's going to be like the whole life and the events, and then the big wedding, and then the happily ever after. And obviously, for those of us on the evolutionary journey, it's not like, that's a little bit silly, because when we find a relationship, or like if you believe in soulmates and twin flames, and you like are on that journey, once we meet that person, it's like a lifetime of preparation for that. But the wedding and the connection and the marriage, that's just the very beginning. That's the beginning of the next fucking adventure, and no matter how much healing we've done internally, relationships are different. It's a different cauldron. There's different alchemy with people, on every level: physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, financial. Like, all these things come in play, and they're all going to be impacted and altered by whoever we're with, like romantically, and especially if we're in like a marriage, like a domestic partnership with somebody. That's going to be the primary thing that affects everything in our life. So, a lot of us have learned the hard way, dude. You need to you need to look beyond the credentials that are being claimed with some of these people. But Love Languages is a really cool book. I found out about some of my stuff there, and why I felt like I hadn't been met, but also why I had experienced so much suffering in my my familial relationships with my parents and so on and so forth. Let's see if I can get this lighting. I don't know. Sorry for the camera. It is what it is. Love Languages is powerful. And another one that I read that came out about a decade ago, maybe 2012 or 2014. It's called Attached, and there's a whole series, movement, concept around this, and like attachment wounds, attachment disorders they're sometimes called if it's really severe. But this this recognition that those people, those of us who have been through really bad life events, childhoods especially, can have major issues with attachment and bonding. Mirabai, come here. Mirabai. Right here. Sit. Sit. Please. Stay right here. Thank you. Yeah, Attached is a really good book for people that have been through abuse. Like a lot of times, severe childhood trauma and neglect can turn into complex PTSD, which makes people more vulnerable to standard issue PTSD if they go through like major trauma events, and a lot of us have both. But also this is, in my understanding, this is where the cluster B disorders come from as well, from childhood trauma and abuse and mixed up situations. So sometimes the I don't know if I, again, this isn't my, like, it's not my forte. I didn't study it in school or anything like that, but so I don't know if I even like using the word like attachment disorder. I don't know that I love that. Attachment wounding. But some of the, there's like anxious and then avoidant and then anxious avoidant combo, and then like what they consider like healthy, normal bonding if the parents were like reasonable enough with their presence and not abusive and emotional attunement and stuff. But sometimes the attachment wounding, the attachment disorders can actually look like trauma and PTSD and even the cluster B disorders, especially BPD, which can get misdiagnosed oftentimes in women. A lot of times it is just complex PTSD. And in my book, anybody who doesn't intentionally hurt other people for pleasure they're not on the cluster B spectrum. Like that's another episode. But I know that stuff gets misdiagnosed a lot. There's just a lot of that in therapy and psychotherapy, psychiatry. Baby, stay right here, please. Stay right here. Thank you. There's a lot of it, but anyways, the attachment issues like anxious and avoidant and these different things, like if you've never been in healthy relationships and you find somebody that is healthy, it can actually be scary. if all you've ever known is those kind of like abuse cycles or neglect or abandonment, it can be unfamiliar. Sometimes when people are like kind of addicted to the adrenaline, like finding a healthy partner, finding somebody who actually shows up and who's there, like like it can actually seem boring. That's why sometimes women, I don't know, I'll just say this. Sometimes women have a reputation for like going for the bad boys and then being, the bad boys, and then being upset with the consequence of that when they get burned afterwards. And yeah, again, that's kind of a more complicated thing. My theory is that there's for women, particularly because the menstrual cycle, that the people that they're attracted to based on hormones and pheromones and stuff changes throughout the month, and so there's certain times when it's you stay right here. There are certain times where it's more of an incentive, more attractive, and it doesn't always turn out that well. Yeah, dude, relationships are freaking wild, man. Being a human being is wild, but finding a romantic partner, man, when you've been through abuse, when you've been through trauma, when you have like, or when you're in trauma, when you're still trying to heal from trauma and PTSD, and if you have like full-blown like attachment issues left over from childhood, it's like this shit is so hard to deal with and to try to heal from. It's so fucking hard. And the only way to do it is in relationships. And like, if you don't know how to get into a safe relationship, or you don't even know what the fuck it looks like how is that supposed to happen? How is that supposed to happen? And many of us have spent years or decades just going through the same shit over and over and over and just getting burned. Sorry, I was bouncing and petting my dog right here. It's getting dark here at the park. There's some characters in my life trying to do some things, and it's this whole situation. Anyways. Baby girl, you stay right here. Thank you. Good girl. Yeah, dude, relationships. If you're in this path, if you're in this space where you're like starting to open to that again after a long season, without just, my advice, take it slow, take it easy. Really get to know somebody before sharing physical intimacy with them, because I know our bodies and our hearts and our desire to connect can be so fucking intense, especially if you've been without human contact for a long time, like many of us have that are healing from this shit. But it's a sacred bond. It's a sacred alchemy, man. You don't want to just go mix your energy with anybody, even if you're like using physical barriers. It's still a heart and a spiritual connection. And just keep learning, man. Just keep learning about yourself, about relationships, about attachment, about psychology, about whatever your spiritual path is. Dive deep into that, and your heart and God will tell you, when the right person comes in. But take it slow, take it easy. It's okay.